What's up, Reefer Revolutionaries? It's 420 in California. This is Reefer Revolution Live.
But I think in terms of marijuana, and legalization, I think that should be a state issue, state by state.
I think in terms of marijuana.
I think it's up to the states, yeah. I'm a states person. I think it should be up to the states, absolutely. You know, I know people that are very, very sick, and for whatever reason, the marijuana really helps them.
Good people don't smoke marijuana.
Terrorists keep terrorizing.
Well, Donald, the good people of the media have decided on the biggest stories in cannabis of 2018. We take issue with a couple of them. Like, what happened to medical cannabis? And, because, Donald Trump seems to know some people that it helps. We know a few, too. Did Prop 64, the biggest story of the year, with recreational cannabis in California, or was it hemp? What was the biggest story? What's the biggest misstory of the year? All of those things. Well, not all of those things, because we found something else to talk about today, which actually ties in to the most underreported story.
Good people don't smoke marijuana.
Except for the good people here in this chat and over at Free TV, the Cannabis Media Network. So was hemp the biggest story of the year? Of the century?
Amongst the thousands of products made from hemp, one of the most extraordinary is Henry Ford's plastic car. Built in 1941, it contained cellulose fibers derived from hemp, sisal, and wheat straw. The plastic was lighter than steel, yet could withstand 10 times the impact without denting.
2018 was a huge year for the legal pot movement in the United States and beyond.
That's right, Reefer Revolutionaries. It certainly was. What's up, everybody? I'm Dave Conan. This is indeed Reefer Revolution Live, the show where we spark up and talk about marijuana in the mainstream media, the politics of pot, and cannabis cures. And when I say we, I of course mean my partner in cannabis and in life. And on this show for a year now or more, Coach Chela.
Hey, babe. Hi, everybody.
Happy
so good to see everybody in the chat.
Everybody's jumping in. Happy last show of 2018, everybody.
Yep.
What are we smoking? Where are we smoking?
We are smoking Jack Herrera.
Oh yeah, we are vaping some Jack Herrera bags pre-show here while we were in the green room. Listening to some music.
Yep.
And I'm about here. You want to finish off that bag? Or are you going to spark up your joint?
I'm going to spark up my joint.
Spark up your joint. I'll finish off this bag here. What's up, everybody? I'll take a look and see who's in. Exhausted 11 just jumped in. Laura P, Bonnie Lee, our Alabama crew.
Hey.
Back to back. Timbuktu, and I saw Small Tubes jumped in there. Welcome back, guys.
That's right.
Actually, I think Tim was last week, too. I think jumped in there. But we got a bunch of old viewers, new viewers. Welcome, everybody. Jumping in. Happy Guy is in there. Jason Jeremy Cruising.
Exhausted 11.
Exhausted 11. Awake A. Stallion Mang. First in. Cheers, the Stallion Mang and Awake A. Hey, guys, we're half a step closer to full 100% legalization in all 50 states. Can't wait. That seems like fun with numbers. It's 33 and 10. 33 and 10.
A half a step.
Half a step towards a half a step.
Half a step. Listen, every little teeny tiny step helps. However, none of us should rest until it's like tomatoes.
That's right. And we're nowhere near there.
No, until it's like tomatoes, none of us are free.
That's right.
Free the plant, free the people. And that's the bottom line. And that's really what you're referring to, right?
Much work has been done. Some would argue that it was a revolutionary year for cannabis.
We would argue that.
In the world, not only in the United States.
For sure.
If you include the world context.
Yeah, it's not just about us.
Sorry, people.
RBU 83145.
Yes, because down in that lower part of the globe.
The globe.
We've got action in New Zealand, this year. And even this week, just this week, really, Thailand.
Yeah.
What? Thailand is now like giddy. I love that somebody tweeted the farmer.
The Thai farmers
The Thai
are giddy.
farmers are giddy, and somebody pictured tweeted the picture of what's her name? Wizard of
Marianne.
Oz. Wizard of Oz.
Oh, yes, yes.
Girl on a tractor. I can only fit 8 active things in my memory, so there you are. Normal aging. Welcome everybody to the final show of Reefer Revolution Live 2018. Wrapping up the year of news and coming up with our top stories of the year. What are your top stories of the year in cannabis? Was it California being the first recreational state, or going recreational, not the first, but going recreational on January 1st?
The largest cannabis market in the world.
The largest recreational cannabis
legal
market.
cannabis market in the world.
Essentially a corporate cannabis takeover of the medical cannabis industry of the medical cannabis system in California, which was the underreported part of that story, or non-reported part of that story, other than here.
Yeah, we reported about it all the time.
Several other cannabis media. But here for sure, since the beginning of January, since we passed it, we said this is going to destroy medical cannabis in California. And we weren't the only ones that said that, so we can't take total credit for that prediction, but we were all right that said that. And we're
working to fix it.
We are, and that's going to be our goal.
There are some people who think that it was an oversight, and there are some people who believe that it was a nefarious corporate capitalist plot. It's probably the latter.
Those are always good. I like those.
It's probably
those are always fun. And I tend to agree with that too.
But in the meantime, good stuff has happened.
Well,
and we will make it better and better.
So we've got your mainstream media kind of came out with the list of what they thought. And of course, the Cannabis Chronicle went out over at dc420la.com yesterday with this week's news, as well as a couple of roundups of the year from a different number of sources, as well as predictions for 2019. Some big news stories actually really came in here at the end of the year that sort of pushed things over to making it even a more revolutionary year for cannabis. The Thai farmer story.
I love that Thai farmer story.
Just, medical cannabis, and unanimously passed in Thailand by the legislature. And
crazy.
Now they
Wild
have a brand new industry. And Israel, just last at the end of the year.
Both on Christmas. They're so cute.
Said they're going to do exports, which is, we have to, unless BB doesn't mess with it, which he's never been a fan. Terry Hyven. Hello. Dave and Chaka. I like that. Chaka from Holy, Michigan. That's like, that's your Star Wars name.
I'm sure Terry meant Chela.
I'm sure she did. I like that. I'm going to make that your Star Wars name. Too bad Oregon can't sell to MD.
One day.
Yes. We'd
like
that. Oregon wants to export very badly. They're actually trying to pass a law. I don't know how that's going to jibe with federal authorities, but
listen, it could be that the federal authorities make a new law and change everything just like that, just like they did, and it was signed on December 20th.
Awake A.
Changing hemp.
Changing hemp.
Yeah, changing hemp.
That's right.
It could be done.
That was the big. That was probably the biggest story of the year. We were looking for it all year. It could have happened any time during the year with the debate over the farm bill.
Yeah.
But they chose to the very last minute to pass that bugger, and hemp rode all the way through with a couple of slight changes and variations that weren't so good on the social justice platform. Still aren't. I think there were some adjustments, but it's still pretty shitty as far as getting into the hemp industry with regards to that. But that was, of course, a big story of the year as far as the mainstream media went. And what did they talk about? Well, the AP put out pretty much the mainstream list that everybody stole off of for this year. The big milestones for 2018. January 1st, of course, California's law going into effect. Sessions being knocked out. Both sessions being taken out. Rolling Stone picked up on that, and I think that really is probably was one of the biggest stories, was that both those guys are out.
Oh, it's definitely one of the things that would help move us all forward.
Got us out of the car to do a Periscope and happy dance in the middle of the streets of Highland Park. But both of the Sessions guys getting out was a pretty big moment.
Yeah.
Because now that really takes out some of the hindrances to moving legislation forward in 2019. It'll be interesting
to see how the new Congress handles it now that those major impediments are out.
Well, you know, that progressive bastion of freedom, Representative Matt Gaetz down in Florida, and king of the puns of cannabis, thinks we're going to have some reform. So there are more and more politicians on board, many of them Republican, and the Democrats being dragged to the party, including Cuomo and others. Yeah. So we're going to see a lot more politicians on board as Rolling Stone picked. Rolling Stone really kind of picked up the sort of the heart of what went on this year as far as the mainstream coverage that we found. Sessions going, just the rash of states legalizing medical and recreational to their detriment one way or the other. It's sad to think that these nascent medical programs are going to be within years squashed and eliminated by recreational laws that are following right behind.
Well, maybe they won't be. Maybe that's what we're seeing.
Let's hope not. Let's hope our conversation today and what one of the we're going to get into one of the most important panels that happened at the Emerald Cup and talk about it for the show later. But certainly one of the issues with regards to legalizing your medical programs, which are great. We had a great medical program here in California for years, probably the best in the country. And that's something that should have been replicated.
Yep.
They aren't being, that's not what's being replicated, unfortunately. And what's being replicated is the recreational model where they're limiting home grows and personal grows and other such nonsense. Over-regulation, over-taxation is what's being duplicated. And medicinal collectives and programs that, whether for good or bad, whether they are good or bad, are being literally crushed by corporate cannabis and for-profit cannabis or groups like and organizations like Holy Cannabis Oil. Welcome, brother. Welcome to the chat. As of here in California, January 9th, the collective model is officially over.
Yeah, that's
officially done. If you aren't playing the game and you're trying to say that you're growing for patients, you are no longer you are no longer in a legal entity as of January 9th. And it's quite unfortunate, but we are going to fight it. We're going to fight for changes here in California in 2019, and we're going to talk about those. Hemp, of course, everybody thinks the legalization of hemp or coming off of the CSA is a good thing. And that might be
nose in the tent.
The top story.
I still like Mexico.
Of the year nationally, yes. Internationally, I agree. Probably the biggest story of the year. There's a lot of stories international. Canada went legal. Let's tell you what, let's, at the risk, should we play this AP video?
Oh, why?
Or should we just talk about it? Well, it's just the list. It's just their list.
No, forget.
I mean, and their list isn't that impressive. I mean, Canada went
legal
on the
17th. I'd rather talk about the Rolling Stone generalizations.
They hit Mexico Supreme Court October 31st. At least they put it in the chronology there. October, pretty big month. Michigan, the first Midwestern state. Okay. For recreational.
Go, Michigan. Go.
They at least kept despite the legislature trying to take away personal grows, they weren't successful, right? I don't think they were. Because they kept the personal grow at 12 plants, which is great. I think I rolled these joints too tight. What do you think?
Oh, I think it's fine. I'm good.
All right, well. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thanks for your
Thank you.
support. Jocelyn Russell, the sad thing about limiting homegrown is that, like home brewed beer, most people will not do it.
Right, but you can. And that's the idea, is
Right.
that it should always be an option. And it should never not be an option.
You can buy your tomatoes at the grocery store,
That's right. Or you can grow your own.
or you can grow your tomatoes even in the backyard, Colorado backyard where it snows. My sister grows.
Right. Or on your patio of your apartment building. It should be an option for every single human,
Absolutely.
if that's what you want to do. Mind you, mine would probably not turn out very well. I have a black thumb. I'm not a grower.
That's our goal for 2019 is grow some successful cannabis plants.
That would be exciting. That would be an exciting, fun experiment. We'll see what happens.
That's going to be new, and we're going to watch Reefer Revolution. Our name of the show is Reefer Revolution, and you're going to watch Dave and Chela grow their first cannabis plants
That's
together
right.
live on the air.
That's right.
We'll put the cannabis cam on.
Awake A, how do you guys think we can stand up to Monsanto? Sorry, my thing went up. That's trying to grow GMO pesticides, weeds, so how to get them out of the industry. Don't buy their stuff.
Yep. Ask your dispensary if it's organic, sun-grown California cannabis.
Yeah. Listen, I don't have to go to a dispensary until after January 9th. And I did go into a dispensary the other day. I went into 2, and I asked specifically for organic sun-grown cannabis. So you go in and you ask for what you want, and you make sure that the folks working at the dispensary know that you're asking for it. If you can talk to a manager, even better. Talk amongst your friends. Make sure that the cannabis naive know that they should be asking for that also.
You mean the Canna Curious?
Canna
Is that what you're talking
Curious,
about?
Sure. Sometimes the Canna Curious.
Civilized word of the year
Hey.
for 2018. Canna Curious.
Maybe among their readers, Canna Curious is the word of the year. They've got 3 million readers a month.
They do.
They've got their finger on the pulse. Anyway, microbiome.
That's your word of the year?
I've been hearing a lot of microbiome and like building on that phrase of the year.
Terpene.
Terpene.
It's my word of the year.
Terpene. What's your cannabis culture word of the year, guys?
Beta-carotene.
Folks, my friends.
Beta-carotene.
My friends, my brothers and sisters in the chat. What is your cannabis culture word of the year? What do you think?
Ask what is the cultivar? What's the best cultivar for stress
Cultivar?
relief or whatever it is your situation is, and what the terpene profile is that helps with that particular ailment. See if your bud tender knows that. Not just what's the best pre-roll that'll get me high.
Right.
Although that pre-roll we got yesterday did get me high. The one you got.
I
That was
asked
pretty good.
for my I don't want to call them bud tenders, but the lady at the
Wear it proud.
collective, also has a very high threshold for THC, very high tolerance rather. And so I said, well, give me the pre-roll that you would buy for yourself.
Cornerstone Research Collective is the one we are speaking of. An excellent
so much.
medicinal focused
Yeah.
collective, though they are fully licensed in all regards
Mm-hmm.
and take credit cards.
They've been open since 1996, and the owner of that collective has written a book called Cannabis Pharmacy, which is in the bookshelf. No, it's on the table in the back
It's on
there
display.
behind Dave.
Yes. Terpenes are super interesting to me too. Awake A. They
Totally.
Chela just came across something that's a full terpene product.
Yeah, turpentine.
Cool. That's a strange name. I'm a little concerned about the name, but we should look into this to make sure it's legit.
Yeah. RBU 83145 was complaining that their plants all have died, and I said practice on hops because I have learned from growers that hops and cannabis grow very, very, very similarly, and hops don't cost as much.
Oh, is this true? Your hops don't cost
So,
as much?
yeah,
hops cheap to grow?
Hops are cheap. They're not cannabis plants.
Yeah.
So you don't have to buy them from a dispensary and all that stuff, but hops grow the same way. So practice on hops, when you have some successful hops plants.
Listen to Coach Chela dishing out the cannabis growing
I
advice.
listen.
And you got that from our chat room, I'm sure.
I got that from multiple sources.
Yes.
It
It is true. I have heard the hops connection, and many folks that do grow hops around the world are very much so looking into checking out. Now that it's just literally around the world, it's I don't know what sparked it all, but this year, the countries that are, I guess Uruguay, you got to give them credit for, out of the gate. But with Canada and Mexico, South Korea, kind of forgot about those guys. They have now said medical's working. And Israel now exporting, barring any executive action. But they're going to be, and Lebanon. Lebanon was the other big country that was like, whoa, they're looking into growing medical cannabis. So and the WHO has now still delayed their final reports. So that's going to be interesting at the beginning of the year, what the international bodies start to say. And meanwhile, also underreported, because we can do let's kind of finish up the top stories. Really, that's kind of it as far as the mainstream. They were all very money focused, adult use because all of these laws essentially are money focused. All these recreational adult use laws couched in freedom and liberty, and really
totally couched,
just a tax and regulate scheme that allows the 1% to make money on both ends of a still quasi-legal system, where they've now, it's like, and that's why the States Act is probably going to pass relatively quickly, because there's now much less resistance to it. That's going to allow the states to implement their programs, and that way the 1% makes their money. Corporate cannabis makes their money on the top end, and the private prison system still locks up people. Your arrests are that's a prediction for 2019. Your arrests are still going to go up, and they're going to go up even more. Just like they've gone up for the last 2 years. You're going in Los Angeles and California in the first quarter, maybe the second quarter, you're going to see arrests and busts and raids and all go up because of this ending of Vegan Metro in the house. We thought you were kidnapped. No, that's not what we thought. That's not what we thought. We missed you, buddy. We miss you. We love our OG 420. Hey, listen, if you guys do, not to just drop this in here, but I might as well. Folks have asked how they can support the show. We think the show is getting better and better, and we have big plans for 2019. We've invested in some equipment to make that better. I'm editing like a fiend to put together some really awesome videos for you guys, or maybe preview some, or at least one or two, very soon. So you can help out if you want to become a patron, for as little as $1 a month. Or you can donate through Streamlabs, and both those links are at the top of the channel page, and I'll drop them in the chat for you guys, if you guys are so inclined. But certainly, if you would, hit that thumbs up and share the stream. Tell folks about wherever you're watching. We're broadcasting on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, Twitch, DLive, WeTV, the Cannabis Media Network. So wherever you're watching, wherever you're streaming, drop a note in the chat. I can see most of them. And share it on whatever platform you're watching on. We do most of our engagement and interaction on YouTube. Chela's in the chat. I drop in there occasionally, but Chela's in there right now. And that's really how you can do the most for us, is share the stream and tell people about the show, because it's just going to be getting better and better and better. But we do thank our patrons, Ellen, Believer, I don't have Laura P. And there's one more. I don't have in front of me. I should have it up. I'm a silly man. It came up in the. I'm working out my stream bot. Oh wait, watch this. Wait, you want to watch this? It's not quite working right, but let's see. I'm gonna refresh the cache, and then they'll come up. I hope. Watch. There they are. It worked. Awesome. They're right down there. Cool. Ellen, Angela, Laura, and John, Believer. Yes. Over there. There they are. New technology. But thanks, guys. Thanks to our patrons. We have a goal of 420 patrons on Patreon, as our OG 420 Reefer Revolutionaries, part of our original group of viewers and supporters. All of you guys in the chat, of course. Vegan Metro has been with us from day one and a big supporter. And we thank you all for watching the show. Please subscribe, get notifications for when we go live. We do this show every Sunday, but we often go live when special cannabis news happens, and when we feel like it during the week and are available. So make sure you get that, ring that bell, as they say in YouTube land. But I digress. Back to the big stories of 2018. A digression. Thanking our supporters is not a digression. It's just a joyful thing to do. Appreciation. We appreciate everybody going with the flow. That's right. News review. Capital Cannabis had a couple of interesting takes on what went on this year. From CBD beer bans, they focused on the High Times Cannabis Cup event that happened. Was supposed to happen twice, only happened once, because they didn't pay the city what they were supposed to pay them. So they said, we're going to wait till the law changes and see what we can do. But they focused on recreational cannabis, of course, a little bit of media with regards to some of the television shows that basically all went away, didn't they? Pretty much all of the, except for high maintenance on HBO, I think they got re-upped. But none of the real sort of cannabis shows made it through the full year of 2018. So we'll see what cannabis television show and films come up in 2019. Perhaps a good Alzheimer's pot comedy that ties both the culture, the full spectrum of the culture of cannabis, as well as the underreported and unknown effectiveness of cannabis with Alzheimer's. So perhaps a great story about that subject will happen in 2019. We'll see. We'll see. We'll have to see. We'll let you know as soon as something like that happens. So 2018, I would say, was a big year for cannabis in many respects. I'd say, other than your politicos and legislatures messing with the will of the people. The will of the people.
I think that's going to bite them in the ass, man.
Oh, of course it is. It's still going to be the biggest issue of 2020 and 2019 is cannabis. But so all of that attempts to thwart the will of the people, whether with regards to medical cannabis in Oklahoma, one of the best medical cannabis law passed recently, Utah, Michigan legislators messing with it, but the people, California even. I mean, our legislature passed the compassionate care bill of 2018, which alleviated taxes to medical patients that terminally ill and critically, people that really needed cannabis from paying the taxes, the outrageous taxes, was vetoed by the governor of California, but passed overwhelmingly bipartisanly in the legislature.
Over 90%.
Over
crazy,
90%.
Crazy, and fast. So we have lots of work to do.
We do.
Until it's like tomatoes, we will keep working. And that's okay. That's okay. We will keep working, and we're all working together. We are working in the same direction. Of course, we live in a capitalist society. Of course, that's going to be something that we're going to have to deal with throughout our moving forward. So just know that, and as we move forward together, we'll get there. We will get to tomatoes. We will get there. Might take a minute, but we'll get there.
So one of the theories is that we won't get full national federal legalization until over 50% of the nation has legal adult use, basically. Right now, we're at 10 and 33 medical.
Right.
So under that logic, does that mean that we could, take medical off, make that legal in 50 states by a rescheduling process, by loosening up scientific research capabilities of scientists to as we move into the underreported stories of 2018.
And speaking of, Alexis Portell in the chat.
Alexa, perfect timing, Alexis.
Very well timed.
Always. Apparently Alexis is well timed in many things, like with this federal cannabis lawsuit.
That's right.
And, yes, we're joking. Hello, Alexis. Welcome.
Yep.
Welcome to the show. We're just talking about how the mainstream media looked at 2018 in cannabis, mostly focused on recreational. I'd say solely focused on recreational
and taxes,
laws and taxes and money.
How it's going to be a huge money-making venture.
Exactly. Hemp, even, the hemp angle is with a business bent, right? And really the underreported stories are the medical challenges, the medical fight, the fight at in the appeals, Second Circuit Court of Appeals that finally got a hearing. Let's watch, I think, and Alexis, please correct us if we're wrong, but I know there was a Kennedy, most of the coverage came last year in 2017 that I could find. And there was very little coverage of this fight
of the federal cannabis lawsuit
in 2018. And one of the only stories that we covered, that we found in our search every week, that we brought to you guys on this channel, was on a Fox station. Fox seemed to be the only station interested in it, although CBS just did interview Sebastian, and we played that last week. But this was really the only story that I could find that covered this story, and this was back in May, June, in the summer. So let's just take a quick look at that, and then we'll talk a little bit more about these stories that weren't really talked about, the medical aspect of cannabis, quite honestly.
Medical gets swept under the rug.
Yep. In the green rush. All right, let's watch this and wet our whistle. There we go.
On a farm outside Larkspur, Alexis Portell stays busy helping others by growing vegetables for those in need and paving the way for other children who share in her pain.
I usually black out. I don't remember them.
Since the age of 7, this 12-year-old has suffered daily seizures until coming to Colorado and starting a doctor-recommended THC hemp oil regimen.
It's a Schedule 1 drug. We hope to change that.
Alexis, who consumes THC 3 times a day, says the oil treatment has made her seizures go away. She hasn't had one in 3 years.
The THC really helped.
But THC is different from the newly FDA-approved CBD. THC creates a high, while CBD does not. For Alexis and others, we're told CBD does not help. So this family continues its fight to get THC okayed by the feds. They say they're encouraged by the recent progress.
I think it's great baby steps. It's a great first step.
The Portell family suit, now in the hands of an appeals court, argues Alexis cannot travel across state lines with her medication and is not allowed to visit national parks and elsewhere.
I can't even step in a post office because it's federal land.
And oral arguments on the Portell case are expected later this summer. We reached out to the DOJ named in this lawsuit. We have not heard back. Michael Konopasek, Fox 31.
So that story was from the summer of this year. And, of course, that hearing got postponed and then did happen this month, at the beginning of this month. We brought it to you live here on the channel, and we spoke to Dean Bortell, Alexis's dad, right after the lawsuit. Last week, CBS did pick up Sebastian coverage, but other than that, there's been almost no print and very little news coverage on the old boob tube across the country, talking about probably the most important cannabis lawsuit. They've spoken about other cannabis lawsuits. Chela, go ahead.
No, I was just going to support that.
Yes.
But this is the most underreported cannabis story of the year, and it's one of the most important stories. It could change everything in the swing of a gavel. It really could. So we think that the mainstream media really, really missed out by not covering this story more carefully.
Alexis says she did a Varney. Yeah, the Varney and Company. I seem to remember the Varney and Company too, but I don't know for what reason. If I can't find it, and that was this year. It was in 2018.
And they're coming back. The people who did that story, they're coming back.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they've made it a little hard to find, I guess is my point then. And it certainly isn't at the top of any channel's list to follow this quest for freedom, really, for medical patients. Remember, these are all medical patients that have brought this lawsuit. This isn't a tax or a business suit. This is, inability to do business. This is freedom to use medicine that they choose to use as a first option, right, Alexis? I mean, cannabis always ends up in the list of the last resort of the last option on everybody's list. Should be the top of every list.
It should be the first, yeah.
Because it doesn't kill anybody.
That's right.
And, you start with a 1-to-1 and go from there.
Alexis's theory is that she keeps saying liberty, so she thinks that the media doesn't want to cover it.
Other than Fox with their with Kennedy and Varney and any sort of libertarian bent, which I can totally see. I get that.
You know what?
Sure.
There's no reason why you couldn't write an op-ed and submit it to HuffPost. They take op-eds. Maybe that's something that your team is considering, or maybe you might want to consider.
But
yes, absolutely, first option.
We have, here's the other thing. The AP did pick up they interviewed Jose on the court steps, but that wasn't really spread, through the local media as far as I could see. So, there are, there's Jagger, then there's two others there, and Marvin Washington hasn't been in the media. Here we have a relatively famous college football star. Right, that is at the top of this lawsuit, and doesn't end up in the media. So definitely one of the most, and we could have news about that very early in 2019. So subscribe to the channel, get notifications. You will get the news on the federal cannabis lawsuit on whether or not they're going to have a chance to argue that this medicine is medicine in a lower court. Or if maybe the appeals judge just says, yeah, it should be off the CSA. I'm going to put an injunction on cannabis being part of the Controlled Substances Act. That'd be fun. That's a nice rocket. There are those that argue that can't be done. But someone just took hemp off of the Controlled Substances Act. I'm not entirely sure how that was. So that was done within a stroke of a pen.
Stroke of a pen.
And that the sister plant, different only by breeding and cultivating methods, can't be taken off the list as well. So Timbuktu, visiting my non-cannabis family, send me a virtual toke. Better yet, a cannabis chemtrail. Indeed, you need one of those subtle and discreet vapor pens.
No, even better, you need a little tincture, and then you don't have to worry about any of that.
A little HCO, little holy cannabis oil, will get you through an evening with your family. That's for sure. We are still enjoying, but we'll have to head up north soon.
Yeah,
get some more. Speaking of holy cannabis oil, FDA is trying to create a regulatory framework for CBD that everyone would have to apply to. That would cut everyone out. Exactly. Notice how quickly they that hasn't even had time to become the unreported story of the year, because it literally just happened last week with the signing of the hemp bill. Now the FDA is like, wait a second, we got something to say about this, and we're gonna start telling you what's up about hemp and CBD and all of that stuff. So, we're going to have to fit into some kind of a framework, and we need to hold on like crazy we have not been that successful in protecting patients in California. And it's unfortunate. And we're going to get into that, very shortly in an amazing, amazing panel that we're going to, watch and break down. Have a little watch party. And because it talks about probably the most important issue surrounding the legalization, tax and regulate schemes that are coming up around the country. Patience and poor be damned. So there you go, folks. 2018, banner year for the cannabis industry. And worldwide deregulation. Probably the biggest freedom story and liberty, if you want to talk about freedom and liberty, is Mexico. That's the biggest story of the year.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, in that it is Mexico's position that it is essential to the pursuit of happiness, essentially, right?
Essential.
Essential.
To expansion of your personality as part of what's in the Constitution of Mexico. They said, oh, so these laws are no longer valid because it prohibits people's pursuit of happiness. Somebody else has that in a document that seems important. I'm not sure if I remember which. But so that's probably the biggest story with regards to cannabis and freedom. We almost had a big one in North Dakota. If that law had passed, that would have been a pretty big one too. Certainly in the States, but that's got a little work to do in North Dakota to get that, if at all. Now, 2019, we've got as far as feds go, we've got the new chairman of the Rules Committee saying he's now co-sponsored the Marijuana Justice Act that's in the House. He's co-sponsored now. Happened that last week.
That's pretty awesome.
And he's promised that they're going to debate. The other thing that's going to come up is the States Act. That's probably going to make it. Because that's a big deal. Because there are the two largest impediments, other than Mitch McConnell, were removed. The Sessions boys, the Sessions brothers, the non-Sessions brothers. They've been removed. So a lot of impediments have been removed to get very popular legislation through, which includes banking. One of the big issues, we just had dinner with a DA. And they're quite concerned. Law enforcement is quite concerned about all of the cash crime that is being committed around the state of California. There's a lot of people being robbed. There's a list.
And like their neighbors. Like my...
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I see a joint
like
floating.
This person we were talking to was saying that, it's their neighbors. It's not necessarily so much that they care so deeply about the people getting robbed, but, they're neighbors to other people who aren't at all involved in the cannabis trade, and they could get caught up in it. So they don't want it to be an all cash business, right, babe? Well,
yeah. And this is the number one. It's going to be the number one argument against legalization in towns and in local jurisdictions. If you already you'll see that in the afterburn in some local stories. But it is a real issue. So they're going to have to address that federally and make some accommodation for cannabis business within banking. And banks want the money. The banks are losing out on a lot of money. So it's going to be a security issue. It's going to be a law enforcement issue. They're going to try to find lots of ways to try to lock us up for consumption and driving, which is going to be a year's challenge for them, and then into the courts. So that's going to be, tough for them. But they'll focus on that.
Do all of you know to thank the kind officer for the excellent job that they're doing and to invoke your right to remain silent if you are pulled over by an officer ever for anything? And do all of you know to never take a roadside sobriety test? Ever? For whatever reason?
Blood is better.
We recently learned this from some attorneys.
Well, yes.
Not that we ever get pulled over, but if we should ever get pulled over, these are new things that I learned.
Know your rights. Certainly. Know your rights.
Always invoke the Fifth Amendment.
It's gonna be they're trying. They got allegedly there's a breathalyzer now in California that can tell what if you've smoked within 2 hours.
Yeah, never, ever, ever. Blood only. Yes, sure, you'll go into the station.
Oh well, here's the thing. All the roadside stuff is only supplemental evidence.
That's right.
The only
don't
evidence.
play.
The only evidence is the blood. That's the only evidence. And as far as now, I'm not a lawyer.
We're not lawyers.
This is not legal advice.
Not at all.
But
we're not doctors either, for that matter.
Take the fifth and don't consent to searches.
That's what I would
do. Or tests on the side of the road, and then let the chips fall as they may.
That's what I would do.
The two privileged people in the chair.
That's what I would do.
Speak of, because Whitey's got his weed.
Whitey's got his weed.
We're
working on a poem.
This is the theme of 2018, people.
Whitey's got his weed.
Whitey's got his weed. And that just came to us watching
First Man.
First Man, that's right.
Of course it did. Anyway, so back to the most underreported story.
Yes.
Medical.
That's what we were talking about.
Medical, you guys. I know that everyone in this chat understands that cannabis is medicine. And I don't know about anybody else, but I do know about me as a formerly someone who thought of herself as a recreational user. It was hard to convince me that cannabis is medicine, but I am fully aware now that cannabis is medicine, and that, like Dennis Perone said, every time you use, what was the quote? Shit, I forgot it. But anyway, it's what we all say all the time, that
when you recreate, you medicate. That's what I say.
That's what Dave says. It's Dave's quote.
Whenever you use cannabis, you're using it as medicine. That's just bottom line. Cannabis is medicine. If you're doing it to make you feel good, relax, escape,
feel better,
feel better, forget something, have community, and get off of 3 prescription medications, or not kill yourself.
So cannabis is medicine, and as states move forward in their efforts to normalize and catch up with the rest of culture,
and then find a way to tax it,
and tax people using medicine.
Don't let people write it off their taxes, businesses, and then still lock people up for it, because they're not playing the game.
We all have to keep showing up and writing postcards to your elected officials. All of your elected officials need postcards from your community about how you feel about cannabis and what it does for you. And keep letting people know and keep coming out of the closet. Because when we went to the Emerald Cup, there were these amazing panels, so many incredible, amazing panels that talked about all the different aspects, all the full spectrum of
cannabis culture and medicine
was represented at the Emerald Cup. And as we all move forward, we have to shore up and remember that cannabis is medicine. And for so many people like Alexis Bortel and Jager and everyone, my mom, for people who need it, it's medicine. And really, we need to safeguard that.
What was the barrier? Vegan Metro says, what was the thing that kept you from accepting cannabis as medicine after smoking it for purely recreational reasons earlier? Why was it? Why was it a big barrier to
I just thought, it's because I didn't have any significant illness. I came from a position of privilege, of not being sick. I wasn't sick. I was, except for anxiety. And I didn't ever consider anxiety being sick. I considered anxiety a character flaw. So that I couldn't manage my own emotions. And I didn't consider it like an illness, but I know people do. And so I didn't think of myself as a medical user. And then like my mom, who said that it helped her with gallstones. She always said, it helps me with gallstones, and that's why I use pot. And I knew she had a lot of guilt around it and stuff. And I'm just like, Mom, it doesn't matter. I don't care.
Well, actually, Joe Rogan actually touched this week on his, I think it was this week, or they put up the video this week, so it was recent.
Yeah.
But he was saying how, that the one thing that kind of screwed it up in California was that, that you got your card, you said you had something, you got your card and said it was medicine, so that you could get your card and go buy your weed without having to go to somebody's house and
That's right.
In a
That's
lousy
exactly
neighborhood.
why I got my card.
You went to a little shack in some lousy neighborhood.
No, dude, in West Hollywood, it was like a million places. It was great.
Or in West
the
Hollywood.
Best thing ever.
And West Hollywood's going to be the, for 2019, we're going to bring you lots of coverage.
Yeah.
From and live whenever we can from the city of West Hollywood, because
it's going to be amazing.
They just approved or are close to approving 44 or 45 consumption licenses.
Yeah.
In the city of West Hollywood, which is just a stoner's throw away from us. And where we used to live, actually. And went to some of the best cannabis dispensaries in the world, really, and got medicine when it was early on in the whole medicine thing.
Mm-hmm. I totally did. Well, they didn't.
But that was it. I think that's why. I mean, people
they
got
didn't
there.
Call anxiety a disorder. That was not one of the approved illnesses for medical cannabis.
Right.
Headaches, migraine was, stomachache was,
cancer,
and so I had those things.
Stuff.
I did have stomach problems and I did have migraines. So those were my medical reasons for using cannabis when I first got my card.
Right.
But the real reason I really use cannabis regularly is anxiety. 100%. And
which used to translate to as just chilling out after work or.
Yeah, exactly.
When your mom got, it's like to take the edge off mom or
that's
whatever
right.
it was,
That's right.
But that's, like we'll hear in this panel, coming up, it's like, what do you want? Your doctors just want to put you on something, they want to give you something. So they make shit up. They literally make shit up and put it in a book so they can sell a drug to you that has a possibility of killing you or dysfunctioning you or disabling you in some way.
Yeah.
Permanently.
Yeah. Awake A says, saved my life. I'm sure of it. Gabapentin is not healthier than marijuana, period.
Oh, God.
Doctors are indoctrinated. They practice on us. Marijuana is a healthy way to treat yourself without side effects. That's right. Gabapentin kills your other organs.
Yep.
Gabapentin is from morphine. It's a morphine type of drug.
Opioids tell your lungs to stop working.
Yeah, to stop working. It makes you stop breathing.
Yeah, that's why the conflation with cannabis and as a gateway is that it's just as dangerous to be on that. That's a problem. It's on that schedule. It's that silly little schedule.
It is. It's true.
That just contributes to the misinformation. And holy cannabis oil, yes, it does taste like Big Red.
Yes, and it is very strong, and you can function on it.
And you can totally function on it.
But it's great.
It's great. Cosmic Lettuce, welcome. Cannabis works best for whatever the intended use is. That's what people tend to find. It is literally good for everything.
Yeah, like an adaptogen. They like to say it's an adaptogen.
Even Martin Lee said that.
That's true.
From the Emerald Cup.
That's true. Well, speaking of the Emerald Cup, why don't we get into some of our Emerald Cup coverage?
Why don't we?